Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Sam Roberts Wrestling Podcast. Introducing your host from New York, here is Sam Roberts.
But a weekend recap. So I was in Philly, obviously. I was there for the kickoff, the pre-show for NXT TakeOver Philly, and the kickoff show for the Royal Rumble. And I mean, what a weekend! My God, what a weekend! By the way, I recorded next week's podcast while I was up there, and you guys are going to be very happy with that one. I can promise you. But so much fun being there, as it always is, and pulling everything off. I've really started to love doing those live shots from the crowd before the pay-per-views, just because, I don't know, because they trust me now, so I'm never scripted in what I'm going to say. You know, I've got a minute of TV time. I can't hear myself talk. I'm in front of everybody shouting behind me, and I have to try to put together some thoughts into sentences that actually make it look like I'm not a complete ignoramus on television. It becomes a challenge in the best possible way. So I have a lot of fun doing that. And also, it's one of those things where, like, you know, when you think about dreaming of working for the WWE and doing all that stuff, the one vision, at least for me, that kept coming into my mind was holding the WWE microphone. Because I learned very early on I wasn't going to be a wrestler. But there was a visualization in my head of just holding a WWE microphone. So it's in those moments when I actually get to do it and talk directly to you guys through the camera, and just, I mean, I just have a really fun time doing those. Not to say I don't have a fun time on the panel. Although, I didn't realize until I got the tweets, I definitely realized the tension between myself and Zelina Vega was fairly obvious, because I was pushing her on a lot of stuff, and I'm the last professional broadcaster. I'm going to push people. I did not realize that the tension between Samoa Joe and myself was so palpable until I was getting a lot of tweets. But, I mean, I had fun sitting with Samoa Joe. I'm glad he didn't hurt me physically. If he wasn't injured, he might have. I don't know. But I'm glad that he didn't, and I had a blast with him. And I think everybody that I read was super, super positive on Samoa Joe's contributions to that kickoff show, and I was too. It was just really, really cool to do that stuff, as it always is. But let's talk about these two shows. So I guess the first thing that everybody brings up is, which show is better, TakeOver or the main roster pay-per-view? And that happens every time there's one of these big four pay-per-view weekends. And, you know, it's tough to judge. If I'm going to sit down and be like, which show had better matches, obviously it's TakeOver. You know, you're talking about, first of all, there's never been a bad TakeOver. There has not been one bad TakeOver show. But this month's specifically was amazing leading into the Royal Rumble. And you kind of always tune into these TakeOver shows, somewhere in the back of your head wondering, is this the one that NXT is going to lose its steam on? And sometimes you look at it on paper and you go, yeah, I think this is the one. And it never is, and it certainly wasn't. If anything, I think TakeOver Philly was a moment to declare that NXT is back and stronger than ever. I think that this is a whole resurgence. Because, I mean, look at what you have. Look who's on the show. Look who's not on the show but on the roster. And look who's about to be on the roster. Okay, you're talking about a card that was so full. Sanity, while they were on the show, didn't even have a match. They just made an appearance. But you've got Sanity. You've got Adam Cole, Kyle O'Reilly, and Bobby Fish, the Undisputed Era. You've got the Authors of Pain. You know, you've got your world title scene. You're reminded of these stories that have come and gone. You've got the women's division. The women's division. I mean, we're looking at Shayna Baszler versus Ember Moon, but we're not even talking about Peyton Royce, and we're not even talking about Billie Kay and Kairi Sane, who's there, and all these people. The roster is getting deeper as more people come in, and then you go into the crowd, and you see Candice LeRae make an appearance at Johnny Gargano's side. You see War Machine make an appearance. You see Ricochet make an appearance. And then, really surprising everybody, in a suit that was eerily similar to the suit that I wore the next night, EC3 shows up under the name EC3. I mean, how amazing is that? That's what I mean. You've got You've got the guys that are, if all you had were the guys that were on the roster, your Velveteen Dream and Cassius Ohno and Aleister Black and Undisputed Era and the guys that we saw and the people that we saw, then that would be one thing. You'd be like, oh my God, this is a hell of a roster. Then you start getting into the people that aren't on the show. Then you start getting into the people that are getting ready to debut in NXT. I mean, they're really not in any trouble whatsoever. It's kind of amazing to see this new wave of NXT come forward. But I mean, I thought from top to bottom, I loved what went on with the Velveteen Dream and Cassius Ohno in the sense that the match was great. Cassius Ohno never fails. He's a professional, for God's sake. But Velveteen Dream, I mean, to realize that he is under 25 years old, he's in his early 20s, and he's already doing the stuff that he's doing. He's got years upon years upon years of main event matches in him, and it's amazing. I mean, most people far older than him could not even make the Velveteen Dream gimmick work, let alone steal shows with the gimmick, and that's exactly what he's doing. The idea that, he stole War Games. Absolutely. Velveteen Dream and Aleister Black did. In hindsight, they definitely did, which is a difficult thing to do on a show called War Games with a War Games match. And I pointed that out on the pre-show. But to then come forward and to take a story that was kind of thrown together, right? It was like the Cassius Ohno Velveteen Dream story kind of felt like we just want to get Velveteen Dream on the show. But instead of allowing that to happen, Velveteen Dream shows up. He's got boxing shorts on. He's got his mouth guard on a pillow held by this Super Jack Diesel dude. He's got a woman by his side now. Like, he turns it into this whole thing. And the fact that he's wearing that sort of Velveteen Dreamy sexual boxer gear in a match against Cassius Ohno, who's a knockout artist, adds this whole new layer to the story of that match that instantly makes people care about it. And I just think that it's amazing. Because a lot of people could have let that match, storytelling-wise, the match itself is always going to be good. When you have athletes on that level, the match is going to be good. But storytelling-wise, it would be easy to not allow that match to be memorable, and that simply did not happen. So, I was so happy to see that and it was the right way for Velveteen Dream to come back. Everybody was talking about his takeover, the last takeover match that he had with Aleister Black. And that match had a story. He added this story in. So I loved that. Tag title match was great. The women's match I thought was an excellent match, but I loved the finish to it. I loved that finish. And it was this moment of and it made sense because, and again, we talked about this on the kickoff show. It was about Shayna Baszler, who's this MMA chokeout artist, who's this dangerous, dangerous woman, but let's face it, has not had much wrestling experience, going up against Ember Moon, who, as we saw in the videos, has had a ton of wrestling experience, trained by Booker T, traveled the world, spent a year trying to get the NXT Women's Championship, finally got it, and she's able to use her in-ring presence, her knowledge of the ring, to win that match by taking a position that most people would think is curtains, but because she's so familiar with her surroundings, knows that if she can just swing her body upward, she can turn it into a pin and win the match. I thought that was really artfully done. I went out into the audience and saw the Extreme Rules match between Aleister Black and Adam Cole, which was just brilliant. And then, brilliant. I mean, some of the spots in that match were just incredible. Then I'm going, I don't see how they're going to top this thing. And Johnny Gargano and Andrade Cien Almas go ahead and have what I think is already going to be considered a favorite for match of the year. I don't see how anybody beats Andrade versus Gargano this entire year. And I'm talking about NXT or WWE. I'm not going to get into the debate about New Japan, but inside the WWE sphere, I don't see how that's going to be anything besides match of the year. That was absolutely Pete Dunne, Tyler Bate level wrestling at this NXT show. A solid 30 minutes. And, a lot of people were online saying that the wrong person won, that Andrade Cien Almas should not have won. This was Gargano's night. The crowd was behind him. They've created this great story. And I wholeheartedly disagree. I think that this match cemented Andrade as a super heel. and cemented Gargano as the most lovable babyface good guy wrestler on the roster. And he would not have received the good guy reaction that he received had he lost. I mean, had he not lost. Had he won the match, he would not have received that reaction. It's like this guy who fought against all odds. Everybody counted him out. No, he's not going to make it. No, he's not going to make it. He finally makes it. We finally see it. And he loses just by this much. He loses. And it's like, oh, how bad can it possibly get? And just when it couldn't get any worse, here comes Ciampa. Boom. Attacks him from behind with one of his crutches. And it's like, how can you not feel all the sympathy for the world for this guy who just gave it his all? His wife is by his side. He did not win the big one. And then his former best friend comes and attacks him again just to rub it in. Beautifully told story. Beautiful, perfect, the right people, the right outcome for that match happened. Because now we can go forward to take over New Orleans, I'm assuming is what they'll call it. I have no idea. But the takeover that they'll do for before WrestleMania. And you've got, hopefully if Ciampa is healed by then, you've got a Ciampa-Gargano match. And you've certainly been reminded of that story at TakeOver Philly. So even if Ciampa's not healed, that story can continue to be told at that show. If Drew McIntyre's back, you got Drew McIntyre trying to get his title back. And if not, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Drew McIntyre isn't back in time. This is what's beautiful. If Drew McIntyre isn't back in time, now looking ahead, if you want to do heel versus heel, you can easily argue an Adam Cole versus Andrade match to headline the WrestleMania takeover, especially after the reaction that Adam Cole got at Royal Rumble the next night. But Drew McIntyre's not back. You can make the complete argument, maybe Gargano gets a rematch. Okay, I'll buy that. Right? I would also equally buy, absolutely, Aleister Black is finally going to get his shot. Okay, I'm definitely on board for watching Aleister Black and Andrade for the championship. What if I told you Velveteen Dream is going to get a shot? Okay, I am definitely on board to watch Velveteen Dream and Andrade go one-on-one. Like, there are multiple matches that I'd be on board for, or any of these new guys. Who knows what's going to happen between now and then with EC3? Who knows what's going to happen with Ricochet? I was surprised to see him in the NXT audience instead of the 205 Live audience, you know, or whatever, locker room. But there's so much that can happen and so many possibilities left open. I just thought it was a brilliant, brilliant night. Now, let's talk about Royal Rumble. I was kind of flabbergasted at this idea. First of all, I think I need to eat my hat. Maybe I'll do that next week because I don't have a hat ready in front of me. But if somebody has a hat they want to, maybe I think I owe somebody. I think I promised to eat my hat if Nakamura won the Rumble, and he did. So that stinks for me. But I talked about that because the reason I said Nakamura probably won't win the Royal Rumble is because we all want it too much. You know, and you listen to the audience in Philadelphia, you listen to what people have been saying for months now. The match that they want is AJ Styles versus Nakamura. And to watch it all go down, I just thought the men's Royal Rumble match was so artfully done, especially towards the end. So they did such a great job. The Hurricane spot was just fun. Andrade getting the reaction that he got. Adam Cole getting the reaction that he got. Rey Mysterio coming out. And that being kept a secret from everybody. I'll tell you this. Rey Mysterio is one of those secrets. I saw Adam Cole walking around throughout the day. I saw Andrade walking around throughout the day. I kind of assumed we would see them in the Rumble because a lot of the NXT guys go home after NXT. So I was like, okay, that's really cool that I'm going to see. Hopefully I am going to see these guys, especially Adam Cole, who, if you've been listening to this podcast, you know we've been following his career for a long time. So to see him at this spot is like, to watch him go out onto the stage, put his two fingers up, and to hear 20,000 people in the Wells Fargo Center shout Adam Cole, Bay Bay, was, I mean, mind-blowing. I just loved it, and I'm so happy for that guy. I did not see Rey Mysterio all day. He was one of the hidden guys that was stuck in a bus somewhere, like the Hardys were if you watch that WWE 24 special about WrestleMania. So I didn't see him all day, right? And I go out onto the floor, And this is where it cost me being a mega wrestling fan. I go out onto the floor to watch the entire men's Rumble match just because I wanted to soak in the atmosphere. And I was so glad that I did because it was so much fun. But I saw Rey Mysterio's son, Dominic, out on the floor. And that's when I realized that Rey Mysterio was going to be in the match. And I went, oh, no. Oh, no. See, because of the custody on a pole match, I know Dominic's face. Even though he's much older now, I remember his face from the Eddie Guerrero feud when they were feuding over custody of Rey Mysterio's actual son. And I was like, that's from the custody on a pole match. Oh, I'll bet he's coming out. And he did come out. And while the surprise was ruined for me, it wasn't ruined for the people in the building. And the moment wasn't ruined for me. It was just magic. And to see Ray come out in tights, like looking like the old WCW Ray, it was super cool. So I thought that the end of that match was amazing. To start with, like, because I guess I don't know how it came across on TV, but when I was watching live, I didn't really put two and two together until the moment happened. When the ring starts to separate, we're at the final 6. John Cena, Rey Mysterio, and Randy Orton look at each other, while Roman Reigns, Finn Balor, and Nakamura look at each other, and you realize it's the Ruthless Aggression era versus today's era. And you're like, oh my God, I didn't even see how this was shaping up. And it gives you this moment to be like, look at the rub that Finn Balor and Shinsuke Nakamura are getting. So good for them, right? So an acknowledgement that if there's going to be 3 guys that represent this current era, new guys, it's Finn Balor, Nakamura, and Roman Reigns. Good for Finn Balor and Nakamura, huh? So it's 3-on-3, and I thought that was amazing. Then a couple guys get eliminated, and the ring splits up again. And then you've got John Cena and Roman Reigns on one side. And you've got Nakamura and Finn Balor on the other side. We're now literally seeing a scenario of the narrative of the 2 guys that the company has shoved down our throats, ours being the fans. 2 guys that the company has shoved down our throats versus the 2 guys that we've been rooting for since they got here. The 2 guys that we want to see versus the 2 guys that they're making us see. And that was how it went down. And I thought that that was just gorgeous. Beautiful. What a story, and a story that I didn't see coming. Especially because John Cena started working heel. Watch that match again. You want to see John, if you've been foaming at the mouth, waiting to see John Cena turn heel, you watch that Royal Rumble match again, especially the end of it, and you'll get a taste of it. You'll see it. That was bad guy John Cena, ladies and gentlemen. No doubt about it. There is no arguing that. The end of that match, it was bad guy John Cena. It wasn't even the John Cena that we saw on Raw wrestling Finn Balor, which we'll talk about later, that was, kind of trying to get some sympathy from the crowd. This was bad guy John Cena. This was John Cena looking at the crowd and being like, oh, you like these guys? Well, too effing bad. I'm going to throw them over the top rope and go to WrestleMania, and I don't care if you like it or not. That's bad guy John Cena. I mean, so cool. So cool. And then that finish with Nakamura versus Roman Reigns, where it's the guy that we all want to win versus the guy that we're afraid is going to win. And it's just like so much drama. And then Nakamura wins, and Renee goes in the ring and says, who are you wrestling? And he goes, WrestleMania, AJ Styles. And like Philly just lost their minds. And I'll tell you this, when I was watching the Royal Rumble match outside in the audience, I kind of tucked away into a corner so that nobody would like notice me. When Nakamura won, I couldn't contain myself. I literally jumped into the crowd and just started jumping up and down with people because I was so excited about this moment. Not just for Nakamura, but for us. For the idea that they gave us back the Royal Rumble. They didn't have this vision of what WrestleMania was going to look like on a billboard and start it with the Royal Rumble. It was like after 5 years, after Batista and Roman and Triple H and all these Rumble matches where it's like, yeah, I see where the company's going. This is probably what's going to happen. They put the guy that the fans wanted to win over, and then they promised us the match that we've been waiting for. The match that we wanted so badly, we were almost afraid to ask for it because we didn't want to get disappointed. That's what we got. And that's special. And so I tweet something about how great it was and how it was one of the best Royal Rumble matches in years, which I completely stand by. Absolutely. Not, I'd have to go back and see where it ranks on my all-time list because, you got 92, you got 99, which I love. There's a string of them in the late 90s that were really, really good. So I'd have to go back. The one in the mid-2000s where John Cena returns at the Royal Rumble. At that Madison Square Garden. That was a really, really good one. The one that Edge returned, I think, was pretty good. So I'd have to figure out where I rank it. But in the last several years, this is by far the best one. By far. We got what we wanted. And I tweet something out like that, and I could not believe, and maybe I just got to pay less attention to Twitter, but I wasn't even offended by it. I was just surprised that there were people on there that were still using the, well, of course you liked it. You get paid by the company. You're a shill. What? That Royal Rumble match sucked. It was so predictable. Are you kidding me? What? You didn't like that? If you're a fan and you didn't like the Royal Rumble this year, I have no idea what you're expecting. If you are a fan and you did not like the Royal Rumble pay-per-view, you are not a fan. Okay? At some point you just have to call it. At some point you have to announce that you are not going to be happy no matter what happens, that you hate watch wrestling. And that's what's going on. If you were tweeting complaints about this year's Royal Rumble, you're hate watching at this point. Anybody in the Facebook chat, because we're on Facebook right now, anybody who didn't like it and wanted a different outcome, feel free to explain it to me. Would you want Rey Mysterio to win? You didn't even know he was in the match until he came out. I was dumbfounded that people thought it was lame and predictable. That anybody, not that, because the majority did not think that. The majority was with me thinking oh my God. And let me tell you something, the entire Wells Fargo Center was feeling that way too. And most of the people, I don't want to overshadow, all the positive people, because most of the people loved it as much as I did. But I was dumbfounded that there was anybody that was no, I hated it. That was the worst I've ever seen. There were people who said it was the worst. And I was like, you're not a wrestling fan. You're hate watching. I don't know what you could have wanted. See, I see most people are coming in going, I loved it. It wasn't lame or predictable. One guy says he wanted Coco Beware to win. I get you'd be disappointed if you wanted Coco Beware to win. But if you wanted Coco Beware to win the Royal Rumble in 2018, there's probably a lot about life that disappoints you right now. One person saying I wanted Braun to win the championship, but that's not what we're talking about. And you can kind of see where that's going, and it is what it is. But that's not what we're talking about. It felt like Goldust was about to have a moment. I just loved how the booking teased it so much. Okay. So, I think that there were some people saying why didn't they do more with the Hurricane? I think the Hurricane was just about that nostalgia pop, and it worked. I just thought it was a very, very, very successful Royal Rumble match, and I think it's very interesting because I would imagine Brock Lesnar obviously retained the title, and he retained it by pinning Kane. So the two matches in between the two Rumble matches, obviously the tag match ended up being a filler match because Jason Jordan didn't do much. But it was effective because it furthered a storyline. And the title match was not one of these classic matches. But with as much was happening on that pay-per-view, it really didn't need to be. And I would imagine we're still going to see Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania, and that Roman Reigns is going to win Elimination Chamber. I would imagine. Stranger things have happened, but I would imagine Roman Reigns is going to win Elimination Chamber in a month or so to get the Brock Lesnar match. There was that one moment where Brock Lesnar appeared to get pissed off at the Braun Strowman knee, so he started punching Braun in the face, which is always, I don't know how you can have more faith in Braun Strowman when he can take legit punches from Brock Lesnar and keep the match alive. It's amazing. And then the women's Royal Rumble match happened. The women's Royal Rumble match. I see somebody in the chat is saying, hey, bro, big fun. When will you have John Cena on? I was thinking about that recently, and I don't know how we would go about doing it. I want to have, especially now that he's kind of a star, I want to sit down and have a wrestling interview with John Cena. No Hollywood stuff, no what are you doing, no dating, no Bellas, no nothing. Just a wrestling. I want to sit down and have an extended wrestling conversation with John Cena. I think now is the time for it. I'd really like to do that. That's definitely on my bucket list. And when I say bucket list, I mean if I'm going to die in the next 2 years. Like it's something that I want to do soon. So I don't know how I'll pull it off, but I'd really, really like to. And I think it's doable. It's something I'd really like to do for you guys. So moving forward to the women's Royal Rumble match, I thought that too. The way it was done was really, really great, and I think the way the women's Royal Rumble match ended and the way the men's Royal Rumble match set WrestleMania up, I feel like WWE is getting to this place where they're finally starting to listen to the fans, but also not giving up on what they want to do and finding this comfortable medium. And I, as a fan, am okay with that. It's a compromise, right? I will give you Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar if you will give me Nakamura versus AJ Styles. I will give you your Ronda Rousey moment if you will give me Asuka winning the Royal Rumble. I feel like there's a compromise going on here, and to me, it's effective. And I think it's going to be effective. I think it's going to make it so that a WrestleMania that maybe some of the more hardcore fans like us could be feeling a little bleh about if it was a Roman Reigns, Brock Lesnar WrestleMania. If you throw in matches that we want to see, like AJ Styles versus Shinsuke Nakamura, then I think that you're setting up for a successful show, a successful night, and a successful ramp up to WrestleMania. So I think the result of the women's Rumble match was effective in that way. If I want to nitpick it, I would have probably had slightly less influence on the legendary women and slightly more influence on the future, meaning a couple less legends, a couple more NXT women, and then really heavily concentrate on the current main roster. I thought there were too many eliminations of legends eliminating current superstars. I think that it should have been really, we celebrate the legends, but we highlight the current superstars. Current superstars should not be able to be beat by legends because current superstars should be currently in their prime. But that said, a lot of the legends really showed up. I thought Miss Jacqueline, was incredible. I thought the performer of the night was Molly Holly. Who knew what she had in her? She was doing more in the Royal Rumble than we saw her do when she was in WWE. If I were WWE, I'd be looking at Molly Holly to hire her back right now. I thought Molly was amazing. It was awesome to see Lita doing what she was doing, and she had a very scary moment with that moonsault, but she pulled it off. So, keep Lita, keep a lot of these... A lot of the women, that was a general statement. There's a handful that you could have been like, okay, maybe a little less of this. Beth Phoenix was amazing. Trish Stratus was over the top good. And it was great to see the Bellas back. And I hope that they are going to come back. I couldn't believe how good Trish Stratus was. I was worried that, she's in yoga shape, not wrestling shape. And she, again, it felt like she had not missed a step, Trish Stratus. And to see the moment with her and Mickie James was really, really cool. So I did think it was effective. It's just nitpicking stuff. I would have had a few more NXT women, and I would have concentrated a little more on the main roster women. I did think that the finish was super cool. I thought, so I'm in my head thinking, okay, this match is going on last. There's two ways that this goes. We could just be seeing like, okay, we want to end the pay-per-view with Asuka pointing at the WrestleMania sign to really emphasize the women. That's a possibility. Or in my head, I was like, stranger things have happened. Again, Ronda Rousey, I did not see all day. Did not see all day. Most people there did not know she was going to be there. Nobody saw her. Nobody at all. She was apparently backstage 10 seconds before she went out there, but she was very, very well hidden. There wasn't a buzz about her. About people, talking about it and stuff. Yeah, people when people found out that the women's match was going on last, people started to wonder if the Ronda Rousey being in Colombia was a work. But it really is fun when you're backstage at a WWE show and the performers are sitting there going like, I don't know, do you think Ronda's here? I don't know. It'd be cool if she was. Like, because you get to see the fan in people at that point. Like, you get to see people who work for WWE going, it'd be really cool if Ronda was here. I just think that's really fun. So, Ronda, I was sitting there going like, let's say Ronda comes out. In my head, I wasn't so against the idea of Ronda coming out after number 30, costing Asuka the match, and then maybe Nikki eliminating Brie last. Because I kind of was like, wouldn't it be interesting to have a WrestleMania with Nikki Bella versus Charlotte and Asuka versus Ronda Rousey? I kind of fell in love. And again, it might have screwed up the finish to what will be a historic match. So I'm not advocating for that finish at all. I just was trying to get to a place because all of a sudden I really wanted to see Asuka versus Ronda Rousey. And I think we still want to see it. The match originally that everybody wanted to see was Charlotte versus Ronda Rousey, but I feel like Ronda Rousey is the perfect opponent for Asuka because Asuka is this dominant female, undefeated female. And I thought Asuka winning the Royal Rumble was really, really great and really perfect because there have been many undefeated people to enter the Royal Rumble and they get eliminated and they're still undefeated. Tatanka got eliminated from the Royal Rumble. He's still undefeated, They don't count battle royals as defeats on undefeated records. But to see somebody to have the longest undefeated streak ever, or whatever it is, 500 plus days of being undefeated, or however long, maybe more at this point, and to also win the Royal Rumble, it's like now nobody's ready for Asuka. Asuka is totally unstoppable. I think and rumors will have you believe that you will probably see Ronda Rousey in some kind of tag match at WrestleMania, and Triple H and Stephanie could be involved. So if that's the case, I would rather, if Charlotte's not going to wrestle Ronda Rousey and Asuka's not going to wrestle Ronda Rousey, I would rather see Asuka and Charlotte than Asuka and Alexa Bliss. Although, who knows who's going to be the Raw Women's Champion going into WrestleMania. I hope it's Alexa Bliss because I really like her. I just like the idea of Asuka versus Charlotte more as a WrestleMania match.